Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be doing some gameplay from the game Bloody Retribution, Battle of Inkerman. This is from Paper Wars 100 from Compass Games. It's designed by Ty Bomba, and it uses the same system as the one in the Battle of Alma, First Blood in the Crimea. That was something I did a few weeks back as part of Midweek Magazine, as was Paper Wars 100. So this is the gameplay portion of the Midweek Magazine for Paper Wars 100. And this is, again, the Crimean War. And we have the Russians facing off against a largely British force. There are no Turks present, and there's only a handful of French forces that will take part in this one. So I wanted to show the top of the map. Our turn track is up here. This all takes place within one day, just as was the case with Alma. So we have Sevastopol harbor over here. The Russians are trying to break the siege. The Black Sea is along this bottom side here. North is this way, and south, therefore, would be that way. So the British reinforcements, you can see them here for turn one. They come in right there. Turn two, let me slide this a little bit. You can see the turn two reinforcements here. We got a French unit and a couple French units on turn three. Turn one is 8 a.m., 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. The weather is fog. And turn two is 8 to 10, also fog. So we've got 2-hour turns for the first two, and then 1-hour turns for the last three. Turns 2, 3, 4, 5 are all 1-hour turns. And we have a French unit down here, which doesn't have a turn entry, and it doesn't have a mark for where it would start. So I'm assuming that it must be a turn one reinforcement. I'm just going to play it that way. It's one unit. It's probably not going to do much on turn one anyway. So I don't see that that's a big problem. So you can see here we've got massed Russian forces here. They're in two different forces. We've got the green forces here and the gray forces up here. They're going to be pushing in this direction. There are several victory hexes that they will need to capture in order to win this scenario. So to kind of go over what the victory conditions are for the Russians, they can win a sudden death if they move any unit onto the south map edge, which is all the way over here, which is probably going to be difficult to do, but not impossible. You can see the Allied forces are kind of scattered, and there are just not as many of them as there are of the Russians. The other ones would be, there are 6 victory hexes that are on the map. You can see the stars here. So you've got the sandbag battery, the barrier, the 3 hexes of the home ridge. And is that it? Home ridge, sandbag battery, the barrier, and the Lancaster battery. Lancaster battery is right here. So that is their goal. Now these white units here are pickets, which if you're familiar with, basically they're static units. They do exert a zone of control. So any enemy unit that moves adjacent to them will have to stop its movement. That is the rule. So they're basically kind of like roadblocks in a way similar to the detachments that are used in the Mark Herman, Waterloo, Gettysburg, Rebel Fury series, and not exactly the same because those have a little bit of a different usage and you can relocate them. These guys are completely static. They stay here and they act basically as static defensive forces that will theoretically, slow the Russian advance. Okay, so at the end of turn 5, if the Russian player does not control any of the victory hexes, they lose. And this was actually the historic outcome. And this battle took place November 5th of 1854. I did not mention that earlier. But at the end of turn 5, if the Russian controls any one of those 6 hexes, he has achieved a draw. Which would basically the goal of this was to disrupt the siege of Sevastopol, and but if he controls 2 of the 6 hexes, he's achieved an operational victory, and if he controls any 3 or more, he's achieved a war-winning victory of the same magnitude as the sudden death victory by reaching the end of the map. So that would be a big one, and there's a capitulation rule that if either player becomes convinced his situation is hopeless, he may capitulate to his opponent at any time. So the turn sequence is pretty straightforward. So you have there's alternating movement and combat phases. And I'm just going to slide this up so you can see the entire map here without too much being off map here. So you don't see the turn track anymore, but you can see the topmost forces of the British up here along this ridge. And then you can also see the southmost Russian forces, which are right at the bottom here, these two in this picket over here. There is one line of hexes below that, but no units are in that line of hexes at the moment. Okay, so back to the turn sequence. You have the turn sequence determination phase. That's going to be where we determine whether we move first, combat second, or vice versa. The Russians always have initiative, but for the first turn, it's movement first and then combat after the recovery phase, and we'll talk about that too. But the from turns 2 and on, the Russian player rolls a die, and if it's 1, 2, or 3, the same movement is used as the previous turn. No, I'm sorry, that's not right. 1, 2, or 3 on turns 2 to 5 would indicate movement first, then combat, the same as the first turn. A 4, 5, or 6 would be fight first, movement second. So there is some variance there in how things may unfold, which adds to some replayability. Okay, enough preliminaries. Let's get to rolling here. So let me grab my dice tower here, and it's right here. I'm going to leave it off shot for now. Grab a couple dice. We'll go with red and green, I think, to cover the green will be the Russians, the red will be the Allies. Okay, so the Russians go first, and we have to do movement. So we do movement first, and then you'll have your... So basically, I'll give you an example of how this works. Okay, so right here we have two that are adjacent to each other, and in theory you could have combat right there. But in this case, we're not in the combat phase, so we can't do it. And you don't have any kind of assault or anything, so you're not going to move into the same hex with the enemy. It's all fire combat. It's all done from adjacent hexes, except for these two that represent artillery on this called Shell Hill here. So when a British is adjacent to Shell Hill, there's a positive die roll modifier to the Russians' bombardment roll. They have 6 bombardments they can make per turn. They are marked by these right here. You put them down on the target hex, and that would be something that you would do in the combat phase. So we're not in the combat phase right now. We are in the movement phase. So with that in mind, we're going to start to move. Now, up here you have a terrain effects chart. I realize it's probably really difficult to see, so we're not going to worry about using that one. We can use this one, which is in the magazine itself, and you can see I can move it up here, and you can see really close. You have movement cost there in the second column. The third column is the combat effect. So there aren't a ton of different types of terrain here. You do have forests, so all of these kind of brownish trees. It is November, right? These are forests. These are slope hexsides, rather. They're obviously hexsides. So let's say we're going to move this guy here. He's going to move up to this hex right here. So it's clear, which costs 2. And then if you're going up a slope, you get a +1. So this is going up slope, so this would cost 3. Now they have 12. All the units have 12. The pickets can't move, and I don't think the cannon moves either. So you've got 3, 5. Now he can move here, and that would be downslope, which does not have any extra cost. So we can go 7, 9, and then up here would be 12. And now he's in position to attack this picket. And because he's used up his movement, and more correctly, because he moved into the zone of control of this picket, he gets flipped to his the so-called disrupted side. And then in the recovery phase, he flips back. So a lot of the units are single step. If they lose a step in combat, they are eliminated. Some of the British units are 2-step units. They have, let me see if I can find one. Yeah, here, the Coldstream Guards. So this is a Coldstream Guards unit. You can see that 5 there, that's their combat strength, and next to it is that -2. That indicates this is a 2-step unit. Now on the back is still that side, and you can see the 2 is there as well. That indicates it's a 2-step unit, but this is the disrupted side. So our Coldstream guards are back here. So that would be one move, and then you just continue to move up. So if we moved now along the road here that goes through Careenage Ravine, if you're on a road, you don't pay you pay 1, and it negates crossing slope hex sides if it crosses one, like here. So if we took this guy, he could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Even though he's going up, he could go there for 8. Not well, and you can only, there is no stacking. So you see a couple well, actually, yeah, these 2 places here, that's one of the only places you can have, because the cannons aren't technically like a fight, like it's hard to a fighting unit, I guess, for lack. They're not an infantry unit. Let's put it that way. That's maybe the simplest way to put it. So I'm not going to actually use well, maybe I will, because he's already on it. So if we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then that would be 3. So that's 8. And then crossing the steep slope cost +2. So we did, now I lost count because I had to look at the terrain effects chart. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Up here would be 2 would be 10, and then 2 more would be 12. So he would be done as well, but he's right here next to the Lancaster battery, which is what I was aiming to get to. Now, obviously, you might want to move some stronger units. This guy's a 2, I believe. Oh, he's a 4, so that is one of the stronger ones. Good. Because we want to make as good, and it's going to be an uphill attack as well. And when you move uphill, attack uphill, you take a die roll, a negative die roll modifier. So here, he can move here, right? He doesn't get any extra for moving down slope, but he's moving into a forest hex, which has a cost of 3. So that leaves him with 9, and then he goes down slope again, which would leave him with 8 or 4 spent. Then we go uphill. So into clear with the +1 is, what is that, 11? We moved here for 3, 5, 8. And then we can move here for 4. So that works. And then that gives us, so now if we use both of these to attack him, because one of them is on the same level, we're not attacked. It negates that die roll modifier. So you always want to, as in most games, kind of put your opponents in a pickle in terms of putting as much force as necessary or as you can next to them to make a stronger attack, right? That makes sense. So this guy here, he's going to go 2, 3. Then he's going to go up here for 3. That's 6. Into here costs 3. That's 9, and that's 12. So he's going to stop right there. So we're going to push in this direction. We do want to take this. This is one of the victory hexes, the Lancaster battery. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause here and move the rest of these guys. They're really just going to kind of move towards the British lines here. And these may move. I'm probably going to, well, let's just do it, right, while we're talking about it. So we got this guy here. He's going to go downhill. That's only 2. He's entered an Ezok. That ends his turn, right? This guy, I'm just going to mark him as done because he's adjacent. Now, this one is a little dicier because if he moves here, then he's in an enemy zone. He's in an enemy zone of control and has to stop. But we're going to do that anyway. Then I'm also going to move this guy here, and he'll get flipped as well, right? And then we'll take this guy, and he'll go 3, and then downhill 6, and then uphill for 9, and we'll flip this guy, right? So we're putting some, well, I don't know if that would work, because that would be an uphill. It's hard to get like around the bend, because once you're in, this is the benefit of a zone of control, right? You have to stop. For the defender, of course, is what I mean. All right, so we're just going to kind of push. I'm going to push the rest of these forces in this direction, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about what we're going to do up here, just to save a little time. Okay, so all the forces here in green, which represents, this is Soimanov's division, and the gray is Pavlov's division. So they're going to move next in this direction. And they have some slightly more difficult terrain, but they have some roads they can use. Like here, they're on a road, so he could go 1, 2, 3. And then I think we would move uphill here, which would cost 4 total. So that would be the end of his move, because he's now adjacent. But that's key because they're on the same level. So if we're going to attack there, we have a good spot to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets flipped for being in an enemy zone of control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. And we'll take this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. And continue to use the road, I think, is the best way to do this. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Going up. So that would cost us 3, which would be 11. And then we're going to stay on the road and go here. Okay. Now let's move these guys. Well, maybe we won't move those guys around yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll move them here. Then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we'll move them here. That costs 4 to do that. Then we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that would be 3. So that's 11. And now we can determine what's the best way to push these other guys up. So we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go up, this is a +2 and that, so that's going to be 5. So he'll end up right there. Then for this guy, we'll do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually 5, 7, and then up, which would cost 4. So that would be 11. And for this guy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. +2, yeah, that's doable. That would be 12. Now these guys might be better off going up here, which costs 4, and then into there, which costs 3. So that's 7, and then down here, which would cost 2, that's 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 there. Then we'll move this guy the same. We're going to go uphill. That's 4, 7, 10, 12. And this one, he can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. And that would be it for him. We've got these 3 here. We'll go 2, 5, 9, 2, 4, uphill, so 7. Well, we should just go here. Well, that was 2, 4, uphill +3 is 8, and he can go there for 11. And then 2, 4, 6, 10, and 2 up here. Oh, I counted these wrong. Let's move them all back 1. And we'll put him here, I think. Okay, so that would finish the Russian movement phase, and now we would have the British and the Allies move their men up. So talking about how this would work, pretty straightforward. We've got It would mostly involve bringing forward like these guys here. So we've got these units up top, right? And they would be climbing if they went here. But we need to defend this sandbag battery. So we're going to put this guy in there if we can get him there. So that's 3 plus 2 is 5. Then he's going to have another plus 2 for 7 and 2 for 9. And yeah, he can barely get there, but he's going to go here to the sandbag battery. And then he's going to go here and here. And that's downhill, so he can do that. So he's going to go right there. That guy's going to stay where he is. And then this guy will go 2, 5, 7, 9, and stop. And he's going to, these guys are going to move up into here. Put one there, one here, and one here, so they can all do that. And then he'll go 2, 4, uphill, that would be 8, downhill 10, and then into here would be 12. So we need to make sure we set up our forces so that they're close to these important victory objectives. Now down here, we've got a whole mass of Russian infantry moving through an area that's lightly defended by pickets, so that's not a great situation. So we're going to take these guys, and I'm going to move them here, which costs 3. And now he's on a road. So he can go 4, 5, 6. Actually, no, let's not do that. Let's move him here for 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We'll move him here. And we'll move his fellow Coldstream Guard unit 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So he's here. Now, again, if you're on a road, you ignore the hex, the slope sides on the hex. So that is very helpful. We'll go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Stop there. And then this one will do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. We'll just move him there for now. Now I want to move these British units here, probably this way, and then we can move the French in. And I'm going to start to build my French reinforcements in this area to hit the Russians in their right flank. That's the plan. So I'm going to pause now, and I'll finish the movement. We have some reinforcements up here, and that would be the end of that. And then I'll show you where everybody is. I'll pause again. We'll flip them, and I'll show you how combat works. Okay, so here's a snapshot of the current deployment. A French unit went down here, and he can stack with a picket. That's that's another exception, right, to the rule about stacking. And then the British reinforcements came in. Some went in here, some went in here, and now we're trying to formulate some kind of defensive line. We did manage to get some defenders into at least the majority. No, everybody had. I mean, this guy here is in kind of dire straits, and we may lose this and then have to take it back. So I'm going to pause now. We're going to flip everybody back to their regular side, and then we'll show the combat. Okay, it is time for the battle or the combat phase here of the game. So I've flipped all of the counters back to their active side from their disrupted side, and we're ready to go. And so let's look at what we're going to try to do here. Okay, first thing to note, attacks are always voluntary. So being adjacent to a unit does not mean you have to attack it, but of course you're free to do so. So the Russians go first, and we do it the same way. They'll make an attack, then the British can make an attack, or the Allies. Back and forth we go until everybody's activated or passed. And, well, I say passed. I just decide that I'm not going to do anymore. Then I don't have to flip all the markers that aren't able to attack. Like, there's plenty of markers behind the lines on both sides that can't attack, so I don't worry about saying, well, we're going to activate him next or whatever. The Russians also have 6 bombardments, and I showed you the markers for those before. So what we're going to do here is let's find a really advantageous attack like this one. Okay, so here we have a 5, a 4, and a 4. They're all adjacent to this 2. He's not in any kind of advantageous terrain. The fact that this unit would be attacking upslope is negated by the fact that these two are on the same level as he is. So that makes things a lot easier. Another thing I'd like to mention is the possibility of doing what's called a flank attack. So we have this unit right here. Now he can't, he's not adjacent to an enemy unit, but what he could do is do what's called a flank attack and advance into this here. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. He can't do that because he's already adjacent to an enemy hex. So the rule is they're conducted using the same procedures as a regular attack, except that you're not actually attacking a unit, you're just moving into a different EZOC. So the rule for eligibility is that they have to be adjacent to one or more hexes containing enemy units, and those same units of yours are also adjacent to one or more hexes that contain only an EZOC. You may decide to attack into one of those adjacent empty hexes that contains an EZOC in a procedure known as a flank attack. They could, like this unit here, in theory, could attack into this hex right here, because he'd be moving from adjacent to another unit into another unit's EZOC, basically. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen here in this turn, but it is something we can consider. So let's talk about how we're going to resolve the combat here. So the procedure is that basically we look at the terrain, and again, this is clear, right? So we add up the factors, 5, 4, 4, that's 13, to 2. So that is a plus 11. Now, the combat results table, the odds only go up to, or the differential rather for the attack only goes up to a plus 10. So I don't think we have any, we don't have any other. Yep, just looking at over the rules real quick. We don't have any other modifiers really. So I'm going to take my green die and I'm going to roll it, and we're going to be in the 10 column, and we rolled a 5. So let's look at our CRT, and that's right here. So we're in the 10, which is the highest one you can be. We rolled a 5, and that's a 0, 3. So obviously that is a bad result for the British. Now this unit is not a 2-step unit, and he's eliminated. Now we can advance into that empty hex with any of our units. So we'll move this guy who was downslope up there. Now, if there was another unit here, he could actually attack again. So you can do, like here, let's say, right? We have 4, 4, 3, which would be 11, attacking a 3. If that attack was successful, one of these units could move up and then do another attack alone into, say, this hex. So let's say we moved 4 up here. He would attack that with a plus 2, which is much less advantageous for the attacker, but it is a possible thing you can do. So now the British would go, and they have a couple areas where they could attack, basically. So we've got 2 units here that could attack there. We've got 3 units here that can attack there, which would be a downslope attack. So I think that would probably be the one they would try to use. This guy's kind of hanging out on his own. So that would be a 5, and 3 is 8 to 4. That's a plus 4 differential looking at the CRT. Not great odds. The British do not have any 2-step units there. And anything but everything, unless they roll a 1, everything but a 1 would cost them a step loss. So really becomes a question of, do you want to play defense? Because again, now this guy is kind of hanging out on his own too. He's got 3 units surrounding him. So it may be beneficial to, let's say, attack this guy, and if you take a step loss, lose this guy, because he's probably going to be killed by these other, well, he could be killed by these other units. So that is what they will do. They're going to take these 3 and they're going to attack here. Now, again, he is in a clear hex. And combat effects from a clear hex are none. And if we're going slope hex side, no effect if one or more attacking units are attacking downslope. Okay, so we have no effect from the fact that he's downslope of these guys. So again, that's going to be a differential of 4. So we will roll, and they rolled a 5 as well. So on the +4 column here, you can see 4 rolled a 5. It is 1-1. So it's an exchange essentially. But we did wipe out the defender because all Russian units are single step. So we'll put him in the dead pile. And as I said, we'll take this guy and we'll remove him as well because he's also a single step unit. We will choose not to advance. It's not mandatory to advance after combat. We've got a kind of a decent defensive area here, and we do want to hold the barrier and the sandbag battery. So we've got a nice defensive line here to try and limit how much the Russians can do in terms of putting multiple units around any of these. And those fortress or redoubt hex sides, they get the combat result is reduced by 1 if all involved attacking units are coming through redoubt hex side. So the only place they would be vulnerable would be on the flank. Anything front and front flank would be protected, but anything in the back 3, they're vulnerable, which is why we put a unit here. If this unit manages to survive and not be attacked by these 2, I would probably pull this unit off and or try to pull this unit off and move them to where they would be in better defensive terrain, as well as being on the vulnerable flank there of that unit. So that would be a British attack. Then we would go back to the Russians, and we can do something simple like down here we have the Lancaster battery, which is a victory area, and we've only got a picket in here. The picket defends, I believe, at a 1. I'll verify that before we do this. But we have 9 attacking. So yes, that is pickets have a step strength of 1. So they have a fighting strength of 1 basically. And we've got 9 attacking. So that's going to be the +8 column. We will roll our green die for the Russians. That's the 3rd straight 5 we've rolled. Perhaps I need a different couple of dice here. Now, if we look again at our CRT with an 8, a +5 or a 5 in the +8 column is 0, 2. You only need 1 to eliminate this picket. So they have eliminated the picket, and that allows them to advance, and we'll move the strongest into the Lancaster battery. So now the Allies will have to retake that because that is a victory point hex. You can see the star right there. So now the British would again have an opportunity to attack. Their attack opportunities are pretty limited. They could try to attack, say, like up here, but that would likely result in an exchange. And again, the numbers aren't necessarily in their favor, so they would likely pass. So let's assume they pass, and then it's then again the Russians' turn, and they will choose to do an artillery bombardment. So they do have 6 bombardments they can do per turn. Now, I think I mentioned during the movement phase that they were not allowed to use the bombardments, or we just chose not to use the bombardments. They can elect to use a bombardment during either phase, movement or combat. They do have 6. So for an Allied unit to be the target of a bombardment, they have to be within 9 hexes of these 2, the Shell Hill cannon here. These denote the Russian artillery positions. Allied artillery is factored into the combat strength of the individual units, so they don't have the ability to conduct artillery strikes on the Russians targeted like the Russians do to them. So let's just say, so again, it's within 9. So this one right here is point blank. I'm sorry, that's a Russian unit. If a unit is adjacent, they get a bonus. But obviously that's not, that's a Russian unit. So, but let's just say we want to target maybe one of these units that's in one of the redoubts here. Maybe this one. Okay, so this guy here in the barrier, He's 1, 2, 3, 4 away, well within range. So you say, okay, we want to do a bombardment, right? So you really have to roll basically a 6 or a 7, and obviously there are die roll modifiers. So you get a +1 if the targeted allied unit is the Coldstream or Grenadier Guards. That is not the case here. Coldstream Guards are, they were up here, oh yeah, here and here. And then the Grenadiers, I'm not sure where they are. I'd have to find them. But anyway, that's the point. You have they would get a +1. And then you get a +2 if you're adjacent to either of these two shell hill hexes, as I mentioned previously. And so, yeah, basically you can only disrupt the unit. You can't kill it, or you can't give it a step loss unless it's a 2-step unit. So if we found a 2-step unit that was actually within range, like this one, I don't think he's within range though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not quite. Don't see. British don't have a ton of 2-step units, and the ones they do have are all kind of back right now. So let's just see. I'll show you how it works. We're going to try to disrupt this guy because we have the strikes. Why not? It really won't have any practical effect right now, but it's just an example of how that would work. So there is a bombardment table right here. So you see Russian bombardment table. So basically, if we roll a 6, or I'm sorry, if we roll a 4, 5, or 6, that target is disrupted. We don't get any die roll modifiers. Let's see if we can roll something other than a 5. Okay, well, he is disrupted. All right, so that would be the result of that. And you would expend one of these off the, I just throw it on there. And then once they're out, they're out. So I wanted to show how combat works, which I think I've done. And so I'm going to wrap this up now. Because I like to keep the videos short, and if there is interest in seeing more of this game, you can of course let me know, and I can. It's fairly quick to set up, and I can do a more thorough playthrough. But in the interest of brevity, I'm going to stop here. So, having said all that, I do thank you for watching. If you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them in the comment section, and I will do my best to reply as soon as possible. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed or found this video useful. And we'll come back and check something out, or maybe consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. And of course, if you are already a subscriber, thank you for your support. That's it for now. I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And until next time, happy gaming.